If you are a veteran, would you please stand that we might be able to recognize you this morning? If you have served in our armed services as a veteran, please stand that we might be able to properly and publicly thank you for all that you've done. Thank you for your service and for your sacrifice. We know that it many times extends well beyond the time that you were enlisted. And today is in honoring our veterans. We're also going to honor those who honor our veterans. So we've invited the 2nd Brigade to be with us this morning. And so they've made a collection of some personal items that we're going to present to our scouts. And they're going to be able to send them off. In fact, Mike, would you come and tell us what you're going to do with those items? And then we're going to let 2nd Brigade share as well.
I'll just talk really loud so everybody can hear.
We've got one coming for you.
It's an annual event we do with our Cub Scouts.
There we go.
My name is Michael Kaiser. I'm the committee chair of Cub Scout Pack 40 here in Girard. We have an annual event we do with our Cub Scouts to help honor veterans and active servicemen around the country. We collect personal items such as shaving gear, toothbrushes, snacks, comic books, anything we can fit and pack in a box. We have the boys write nice little letters of appreciation. We pack them up and we ship them overseas. We are still looking for addresses of anybody that would be first in the church and then outside of the church, of course, for the number for all the items so we can send them overseas. We need a destination for them to go. So if anybody has anybody that's actively serving and would like to receive a box, please see me or call the office with the address here at the church. We pack these boxes and we send them off. Quite often we get responses back. The servicemen will write letters and return them, and the boys really get a charge of patriotism when they hear from the people that receive the boxes and the appreciation that they do. So I want to thank the brigade here for collecting all the items. On the 21st, we have our pack meeting for the November. We'll be at the American Legion next door, and we'll be putting all the boxes together and sending them out. So any addresses should come in before then if you'd like to see one of your boxes go to your people. And thank you very much for everything that you've guys done. I really appreciate it.
All right, thank you. And Mike's going to continue with the turkey dinner downstairs, so he's not, thank you very much for that as well. Everyone's invited for dinner following church. It's $9 for adults and $5 for kids.
Yes, and takeouts are available.
And takeouts available. This is their annual fundraiser, so please come downstairs and grab some wonderful food. Thank you, Mike. So I'm going to invite 2nd Brigade if they would come and share about their ministry to our vets and what it is that they are able to do.
Good morning. They just call me Pops, so I'm going to let our prospect here read our mission statement, and then I'll tell you a little bit about the 2nd Brigade.
Who are we? The 1st Brigade was our brothers who went to a foreign land to fight unselfishly for our country and the cause of freedom. When they came back, they brought back a bond of brotherhood. From that bond, they formed a unique club known today as the Vietnam Vets MC. We are the sons, nephews, friends, and brothers of those soldiers who fought for God and country, and we share a common bond of brotherhood with them. We exist because of them and are forever bound to show honor, loyalty, respect, and most of all, brotherhood to the Vietnam Vets MC. We will forever carry on the legacy of the Vietnam Vets MC, so no one will ever forget who they are and what they have done. Through us, the Vietnam Vets MC will live forever and never be forgotten. We are the 2nd Brigade MC.
Ladies and gentlemen, children, 2nd Brigade is all over the United States. We're in almost every state, and we honor all veterans, past and present and future. Everything, we like riding our bikes, but everything we do is for veterans. And just within the last week and in the month of December, last Friday, one of our chapters fed a bunch of the soldiers down at Packard Park before the parade. And December the 7th, one of our chapters up north is going to bring a bunch of veterans from the hospital up there and feed them. December the 17th, my chapter is honoring 5 veterans in this area at Illusio's Banquet Hall. And just to let everybody know that everything we do for veterans. And, you know, a lot of times maybe people don't appreciate the war, but you have to honor the soldier. And a lot of us are not soldiers. Our family members were soldiers, but everything we do is for soldiers, and we appreciate you inviting us here. And we have some things that you can send to the soldiers. A couple years ago, I think my chapter, we sent 220 boxes over to the soldiers, you know, with toothpaste and aftershave and stuff, you know. And you would not believe the letters we got back from the soldiers over there that appreciated it. And even some of them when they come back into the States. But thank you very much, and I hope that I enlightened exactly what the 2nd Brigade is.
Mike, stand up. This is all of the things that have been brought in, and there's some more to come, but this will be where we start. Now we have a couple announcements.
Welcome to iFire, where the next evolution of faith is taking you one step closer. Whether you're a first-time guest or a lifelong member, go ahead and fill out your Connect card. If you are a first-time guest, please indicate that on the card. The church gives $5 to the Emmanuel Care Center for every first-time guest that fills out a card. Also, be sure to flip it over for the latest sign-up opportunities. Helping kids move one step closer to Jesus is central to our identity here at iFire. Childcare is available for kids 6 weeks to 3 years old in our nursery. For preschool through 6th grade, we have commotion downstairs starting 15 minutes before the service. Just ask any greeter where to go. Your offerings continue to have a real impact on the people and ministries of this church. Here's just another example of how your offerings are touching lives.
Well, my wife and I had been looking for a church that we're comfortable with. When we'd go visit our daughter in Columbus, we'd go to church with them on Sunday. And they had a contemporary service with a band and informal setting. And we really liked it. I mean, we enjoyed it and you had fun. Then we'd come back to our church here and it was a little bit different. It was just the ordinary ho-hum blah, and we started looking for something that we felt met our needs a little better. Some friends of ours who were parishioners at our old church and are here now suggested give Girard Methodist a try, and we did, and we liked it, and we're here.
You can text to give or give electronically online by going to ifiregirard.com and clicking on Give. Or you can just drop your offering and your Connect card in the metal kiosk by the doors on the way out. As we like to say, feed the robot. Are you having trouble fitting in to anything? Then join Tiffany Ratushin on Wednesday nights at 6:30 in Fellowship Hall for some faith, fitness, and fun. And for $2 per kid, we'll even have somebody watch your children while you work on making a healthier you. Just ask Tiffany Ratushin for more information. The Tuesday night small group studying Living the Questions will be joining forces with the Monday night small group at the Sheasley's house. So, from now on, both groups will be meeting at the Sheasley's in McDonald at 6:30 on Mondays. Celebration Sunday is November 20th. We've got a special service planned at 11 o'clock, including things you've never seen at iFire. Join us for a catered lunch after the service. Our next Starting Point lunch is the last Sunday of the month, which is November 27th. Starting Point is a no-pressure way to get to know the pastor and the staff. and to learn about new ways to connect with other folks. Join us for lunch right after the service, and childcare is available. Don't forget to follow iFire Girard on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to stay connected throughout the week, and on YouTube to see all of our videos, including this one.
All right. Well, it's great to be with you today. We're going to continue on in the series called Breathing Room. Last week we talked a little bit about how we need to cultivate breathing room in our life. If we continue to live at the edges of life, maxed out in our time, maxed out in our energy, that we're going to miss God's voice, because God usually speaks in whispers and nudges. And if we're never quiet and we're constantly running and constantly stressed, then we're going to miss that time when God speaks, or he's going to have to use a 2x4 and get our attention by, being flat on your back, looking straight up at the ceiling. And we don't really want that for you. We want to be able to hear God's voice, so we need to develop some breathing room. And we talked about how sometimes it's our fear that keeps us living at the edge. It's our fear that we don't matter. It's our fear that we're not going to measure up. It's our fear that everything's not going to be okay tomorrow, so I have to work harder today. All of those things that play into it, and how as people of faith, God has something different for us. Well, today we're going to talk about, okay, that's great, but how do we do that? How is it that we actually get breathing room into our life? How is it that we actually say, this is what I'm going to do from here on out? And we're going to talk a little bit more practically today about a couple of the things that we need to do to help to make that breathing room happen. But before we do that, let me ask you a question. What's the dumbest thing you've ever purchased? That thing you were just so sure you had to have, and it's still sitting in the garage or in the kitchen, or it just had to have it. And then you used it for 3 weeks and you were done. Well, when we were first married, one of the first dumb purchases we made, it wasn't the last, but one of the first, was we decided, since we were poor, that my husband was going to change the oil in the car. So we bought the stuff so he could do that. And there's just a couple problems with that. First of all, my husband doesn't have a really large mechanical aptitude, okay? And so he is great at other things that I'd rather have him be great at, but that's not one of them. So it took him half a day to change the oil in the car and to rotate the tires. The other thing that happened was that was the first day I ever saw what I call his pregnant chicken walk, because he hurt his back trying to get the lug nuts off, because they were wrenching him down with those, I don't know what they're actually called, but those air wrenches, the power tools. Well, go back to the no mechanical aptitude. Ken's not allowed to have power tools, okay? So he had to use the old crowbar, and he walked in looking like he was about ready to lay a couple eggs. And I said, you hurt your back, didn't you? So that ended up, after the doctor and all the bills and everything, that oil change cost us over $200. Not a bright purchase. Well, not to think he's the only one that makes those kind of decisions. I have in my kitchen this nice, shiny food dehydrator, because I was so sure. Now remember, I don't cook, okay? I cook so we don't starve to death. That's about it. But I decided we were going to get healthy. So we were going to make healthy snacks, like zucchini chips. Apparently you can make zucchini chips, right? So got this nice dehydrator, because you don't want to go halfway on these things. After all, it's your health that you're after. Bought this thing, and I figured it out. I think we paid about $35 per bag of zucchini chips that we actually made on the thing. And it's still sitting there in my kitchen and still doesn't get used. Every one of us makes dumb decisions. Every one of us makes dumb decisions. So the first thing that we're going to talk about when we talk about how we cultivate this breathing room is that we need to find wisdom in what we do. Now, I wish that I could just wave my magic wand, twinkle my nose, and go, just be smart, folks, and all of us would. Because you know what would happen? I'd be driving down the road, and I'd go, just be smart. And all of a sudden, people would get to the right-hand side of the lane when they're not driving that fast, right? And they'd use their turn signal. Do you know what my favorite word is when I'm driving? Well, it's actually two. I can't really tell you, but let me tell you what it rhymes with. It rhymes with plum brass, okay? So wouldn't it be nice if we could just wave our magic wand and everybody did smart stuff? Everybody did what they were supposed to do and drove like civilized people. you know, how they're supposed to. Don't you just wish we always made those great decisions? Well, we don't. And we don't have a magic wand. So what do we do? Well, the Bible gives us a little bit of a hint. In Psalm 90, verse 12, Moses is actually talking here. He says, Lord, teach us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom. Teach us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom. What does that mean? Sounds good. What does it mean? It means teach us that there are limits to our lives so that we'll make better choices in how we live. Teach us that there's a limit to our lives in how many days we get to live, and how much energy that we have, and how much money we can produce. Teach us there are limits, because in recognizing that there are limits, we're going to be able to have wisdom about how we spend the rest of them. Now, I've told some of you before, I plan on checking out at 84, okay? I'm hoping by then there's an eject button, and I get to say, okay, I'm done, I'm out of here. Why 84? Well, nobody in my family's made it into the 80s, so I'll be the first. That'll be fine by me, make it to 84. Plus, my husband's 13 years older than I am, so that provided I don't actually kill him first, he'll probably be dead from natural causes. It's a toss-up as to which one this is going to be. Why? Because, well, just this week, for example, on our day off, he likes to get up way earlier than I do, and he'll go, oh, honey, I'll go pick up the produce at the co-op. It's okay. 4 weeks in a row, he comes back with wrong produce, with something messed up about the order. And I finally said to him, what is going on with this order? They haven't gotten it right 4 weeks in a row. I know. What does she look like? Who? The girl who gives you the produce. She's just so cute that I can't tell her she's wrong. Yeah, plum brass. Now, I may stick around longer than 84 if I happen to find somebody who's rich enough and makes it interesting enough. You know, I might stick around a little bit longer. I'll reevaluate when I get there, but that's my plan at the moment. By the way, I did tell him, oh, honey, that's so cute. She probably thinks you look like her dad. Yeah, you know what he called me? Plum brass. Yeah. Teach us to number our days. Teach us that there's a limit to our lives. Teach us that we're not always going to have the kids with us. Teach us that we're not always going to have our parents with us. Teach us that life is limited, so we make it more precious. Teach us to number our days, that we're not going to live forever, so we need to make the days that we have count. There was a woman who wrote a book about her time in hospice. She'd spent 30 years in hospice, which meant that she got to be with people in the last 2 to 3 months of their life. And as she talked to them, she found out a few things. She found out that many of them said, I wish I didn't work so hard. I wish I'd spent more time with my family and my friends. She said, I heard that a lot, but do you know what I heard the most? You know what I heard the most? I wish I had the courage to live the life I was born to live, rather than the life people expected of me. I wish I had the courage to live the life I was born to live, instead of the life people expected of me. Isn't that interesting? When people knew their days were numbered, when they knew that they only had a few months to live, what came back to them, what they regretted, was not living to their true self, not being their true self. I wish I had the courage to be my true self instead of what others expected of me. Now, a few years ago, I was reading a book, and they were discussing the idea of reincarnation. And there was actually, apparently, about 1,000 years ago, a very small sect of Christianity who believed in reincarnation. And I remember reading that, and I remember thinking, oh, no. I have done everything everybody's ever expected of me. I got the grades, I went off to college, I did all that stuff that I was supposed to. I'm not coming back and doing that again. And you know, God convicted me about that. Because it was like he said, listen, whose fault is that? If you're not living a life you'd come back to, you're not living the life I want you to live. Now, that really doesn't have anything to do with reincarnation. But I remember that feeling like saying, wait a minute. Maybe God didn't plant me on this earth to fulfill everybody else's expectations. Maybe he meant to give me and you a life that you'd be willing to come back to. Maybe he meant for us to have a life that we'd be happy to live more than once. My husband learned this in a very poignant way when he had cancer and faced his own mortality. Thankfully, he's healthy today, but there was a few months there where we weren't sure what was going to happen. And in the process of it, he had to look that face to face. And you know what? He is different today. He tells people no that he never would have told no before. Because he knows our days are numbered. Why waste time doing stuff we weren't meant to do? And you know what? He'll stand up for people he never would have stood up for before. Before that, he was just happy for everybody to get along. Whatever we got to do to keep the peace, that's what we want to do. And now, you watch him. Because he will stand up and say, church is for people who aren't yet here. And we need to do what we need to do for for the next person who's going to walk through the door. He'll stand up for people he never would have stood up for because he understands his time on this earth is limited and precious. And we gain a heart of wisdom. We gain a heart of understanding how to spend that time, how to spend our energy when we get and are very clear that we only get a few days. We only get a few days. We're trading our life for what we're doing right now. At the end of every day, you've traded a day for what you did. Is it worth the trade? Is it worth the trade? Our time is our life, and we have a limited quantity of it. Well, the second thing, we need to cultivate that wisdom by recognizing our limits and recognizing that those limits are actually a blessing to us. But secondly, we have to cultivate contentment. We have to cultivate contentment. You see, a lot of times when we live at the edge, it's because there's something in us. It tells us that we're not enough. There's not enough. There may not be enough tomorrow. I have to work harder and faster and longer in order to make it safe for today and safe for tomorrow. You see, our culture tells us that our standard of living goes up and our quality of life goes up. That those two things are the same thing. That our standard of living, in other words, how much we spend, goes up. And our quality of life goes up. If we get the bigger car, we'll be happier. Or the faster. If we get the bigger house, we'll be happier. Our quality of life will go up as our standard of living goes up. There's just one problem. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. They're not the same thing. And in fact, what you find to have breathing room is that your standard of living has to go down so your quality of life can go up. It has to go down so our quality of life will go up. There has to be a gap. There has to be breathing room between what we make and what we spend. This graph here I got from the census data. The average income is $51,939 per household. The average expenditure, $55,978. Do you see a problem with this? You see, everybody's busy raising their standard of living. and we're losing our quality of life. Because you can raise your standard of living with debt. You can raise your standard of living, just swipe that credit card and everything will be fine. You can raise your standard of living by helping yourself to things that aren't yours and that you didn't buy and didn't pay for, but you acquired, or maybe we call it liberated, whatever you call that, from work, you know, those Post-it notes and the pens, or maybe a few more things, right? We raise our standard of living, and we can do that in ways that actually rob us of our quality of life. Now, I know I heard somebody say, but Pastor Vicki, you don't understand. I don't make enough money. Guess what? None of us make enough money. None of us make enough money because it's not an income problem. I bet that many, many, many of us are making the most we've ever made in our life, and we still feel like we don't have enough. It's not an income problem. Do you remember when you were first married and you're going to live on love? And you're working for minimum wage or just barely above that, but it didn't matter. But do you remember how you thought, oh, but maybe we could just get a little bit more and get another couch or get another car, those things? What happens now? You come home and what do you say? Oh man, if we could just get another couch or get another car. And you're making more than you ever did, and something didn't change. Something didn't change in between all of that. We've raised our standard of living, but we haven't changed our quality of life. It's not an income issue. It's never an income issue, unless, okay, let me be fair, there's one time it's an income issue. If you've lost your job and you can't carry a box of pizza or drive a car. You know why? Because every pizza delivery place within 10 miles of here is hiring. It's never an income issue unless you can't physically carry a box of pizza or drive a car and you lost your job, okay? It's not an income problem, it's a spending problem because we're not content. Because we haven't found that contentment. We haven't found the way to be satisfied with what we have and to make a gap between what we spend and what we make. We haven't made a gap between what we can schedule and what we do schedule. You see, I want is much better than I owe. I want is much better than I owe. I was in the mall this weekend, and I walked through, and let me put a little context to this. I remember when we first got married, we had to finance a car. We didn't have enough money to pay for the thing outright. And we were still trying to pay off our student loans. So we get this car, and they said, oh, you can take 5 years to pay off this car. I thought, 5 years? Who in the world ever takes 5 years to pay off a car? When I was walking in the mall this weekend, do you know what I saw? I saw a sign that says, go ahead and get her the wedding ring. You can take 5 years to pay for it. Now, do you realize that you can be taking a kid to preschool and still paying off the wedding ring that got you that kid? Okay? 5 years to pay off a wedding ring. Wow. Why? Because we're not content with what we have. Proverbs 22:7 says it this way. The borrower is servant to the lender. Now, this word servant really means slave. You remember last week we talked about how 4,000 years ago, God delivered his people from Egypt. God brought them out of slavery, but he couldn't just deliver their bodies out of slavery. It took them 40 years to get their minds out of slavery too. None of them had a memory, a conscious or unconscious memory of what it was like to not be slaves. And it took God 40 years to teach them what it was like to be free. He freed their bodies, but he had to free their minds. Do you really think that the Almighty God delivered his people 4,000 years ago and intends for us to turn around and voluntarily relinquish that freedom to Visa or MasterCard? We sign up for that. Nobody forces us. Nobody puts a gun to our head and says, oh, go ahead and swipe the card for this. God didn't intend for his people to be slaves. To Pharaoh or to discover? He didn't intend for his people to be slaves. The borrower is the slave to the lender. Last week, we talked about how they learned to take Sabbath, that they don't have to work 24/7 to live when you trust God to provide for you. Today, we're learning that many of us have slid back up to be servants to somebody else. Let me ask you this. You say, is that me? One simple question. You walk into work tomorrow and your boss is a jerk and calls you a plum brass or something, okay? Do you take it or do you walk? Well, I take it. Why? Because I have bills to pay. Because Visa and MasterCard said I have to. I think you have your answer. I think you have your answer. We all were born to be free. Liberty was not invented by the United States of America. We just have gotten the blessings of seeing it in the most fullness of any country in history. Liberty was God's idea. He wants his people to be free. Free in body and mind and heart. He didn't deliver us 4,000 years ago for us to sign back up for that particular trip again. Now, I know there are a few folks here who are skeptical, and by a little skeptical, I mean a lot skeptical. So somebody is probably saying, yeah, but what about you? Well, I am proud to say that after 10 years of dealing with medical bills and various things that we went through during our family crisis, 2 weeks ago, I sent in a check for $1 and paid off every single debt that we have. It took almost 10 years to do it. My husband will tell you I made him drink water and white bread. I think that's a slight exaggeration, not much, however. When you focus on being free, you can find a way to be free. It may take a little bit of time, but God is on your side for this. God is on your side for freedom to happen. Teach us that there are limits to our life. Give us wisdom to spend our days and our energy properly. And give us contentment so that we're not trying to feed a hole that can't get filled. So that we're not trying to make ourselves happy with retail therapy, with the next thing that we can do and buy and get, and so that we have hearts that are content, that our quality of life can go up as our standard of living goes down. Because God never created us for slavery. Now, I'm not trying to put you down if you're in debt. I'm just saying that let God free you from those expectations. Let God focus you on who you were created to be, and see if some of those issues don't evaporate. And if he can't give you the time and the help you need so that you can say, I sent in the last dollar, we're debt free. We are free people of God. We are free. The measuring stick that I want you to use is John 10:10. I came to give you real and abundant life, more and better than you ever thought possible. How much does that sound like you? How much does that sound like you? On a scale of 1 to 5. If a 1 means I get glimpses of it, rarely. To a 5 that said, I live it every day. This is mostly who I am. Where are you on that scale? I came to give you real and abundant life, more and better than you ever thought possible. If that's what you're living the life God has for you. And to the extent that you're not, He wants to free you, body and mind and heart, that we may have wisdom to number our days, that we may have contentment to live as free people of God. So the question then becomes, in order to live that kind of life, in order to live an abundant, real life, what do you need to stop doing? What do you need to stop doing? There's probably something standing in the way. Or, what do you need to start doing? Maybe the question is, who do you need to start hanging around? Because you have people who suck the life out of you and people who give more life to you. And guess what? It's okay to hang out with the ones who give you life. It's okay. Who do you need to start hanging out with? What do you need to start doing so that you can say, I'm living the life God created me for? What do you need to do more of? What do you need to do more of? And what do you need to do less of? They say Americans sit in front of their television or computer screen recreationally 28 hours a week. That's a part-time job. 28 hours a week. I'm not throwing stones. I found this show called This Is Us. Binge watched it. Because there's like 7 of them I hadn't seen, and I'm like, well, I don't want them to take it off. I might miss out. I'll watch all 7 in 2-day period of time. Yeah, 28 hours a week. We do that. What do we need to do less of? What do we need to do more of? So that a year from now, 5 years from now, you can be the one standing here saying, I know what it's like to have real and abundant life that Christ came to give. He's going to have to free us from something to do that. We have the courage to let him. We have the courage to let him. I don't ever want anyone to follow Christ because somebody told them they should. What I want for you, what I want for me, and what I want for them is to follow Christ because his character has become so real through the people who name his name. They say, why would I not want to follow him if that's what happens in people's lives when they do? That's my prayer, that I would live that way, that you would live that way, and that everybody would be able to see what it means to follow Christ and to live that real and abundant life. So let me pray for you that way. Would you stand with me? God, thank you so much for the fact that we can be here to worship in a place where we have freedom. But thank you more that freedom was your idea, that it was in your heart first before it went into any other person or any other place. Thank you that we can be free in body and spirit. Now, some of us have signed up. Some of us have willingly signed on the dotted line with our schedules, with our energy, with our money. We've signed up to be a slave to something or someone else. Would you set us free? Would you set us free? Help us to trust that you're that kind of person, that you're good, that you're powerful, but that you are gracious. And it's not just about everybody else, it's about me too. We ask that you would set us free in the name of Christ.